Started Brother Martin High School from going back toward 81 through 84, right up in there, right? Yeah, okay, there you go. And he played at LSU, of course, from 1984 through 87 as an outstanding defensive lineman. He served as a permanent team captain in his senior season. He finished at LSU with 139 tackles, 4 sacks, and then spent time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL. Of course, his son William starts at guard for the current LSU Tiger squad, and LSU will play at Ole Miss Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Please give a warm Great New Orleans Sports Foundation Quarterback Club welcome to Tommy Clapp. Tommy?
Well, I want to definitely talk to Kenny about next year, choosing to be maybe sometime in the 7-0 span. It's funny because he said, you know, Tommy, I thought about you after that game kind of got out of hand. And I said, I thought about you too.
And he's bigger.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'll start by saying, what was working for 7 weeks, right? I think not much changed. I think personnel and talent that we faced probably changed significantly. The Les Miles era has been one that's just been an eye backfield, physicality up front. We were able to run into those 8 and 9 man boxes the first 7 games of the season. I think Florida probably gave us, to date at that time, our toughest test, and still executed and probably had close to 200 yards rushing. If I remember, Leonard Fournette went for 180 plus, and at that time things looked pretty good, right? Then we go ahead and we face Alabama, and things changed dramatically. At the end of the day, when I watched that game, of course I was there, and my son plays, and I would actually prefer to probably watch most games from home, but at the end of the day, to be supportive of my kid, my wife makes me go to just about every game. So, but the game that I saw against Alabama was, it wasn't very fancy, right? And I think we were unable to take advantage of some of the things that were dictated by scheme. I think the general consensus is, both sides of the line of scrimmage were dominated by Alabama, and you can't deny that. At the end of the day, though, you can be dominated by scheme. When they line up 8 and 9 in the box, it's tough to run. And by the way, those 8 or 9 that are in the box are all NFL grade players. I don't know if, and me and Kenny were talking earlier, but I think many LSU fans feel that, Alabama is obviously the measuring stick, and many feel like we should be on par with Alabama, and I think everybody here feels that way also. But at the end of the day, if you saw the depth of that Alabama defense and the ability to roll 3, 4, and 5 320-plus pound linemen in on the defensive front, and LSU doesn't have anybody on the defensive front that weighs that much, is a significant difference. The talent and the depth there. It speaks to the 5 straight victories that Alabama has beaten LSU. So, coming off of that loss, I think it was a time to regroup. I think everybody here, if it's an LSU fan, would have expected a significant uptick in performance against Arkansas. Flat out didn't happen. An interesting story is after the Alabama game, I had my 5 minutes that I got to spend with my son after the games before they load the bus, and I asked him how he was feeling. He said, "Dad, I'm pretty sore, and I got this long plane ride back to to Baton Rouge," and I said, "You're not going to get any sympathy from me. I walked all the way to the top of that stadium, which is Mount Everest. I was 29 rows, I think 35 was the top of the stadium, with my dad, who had double knee replacement. When we finally sat down, I asked my dad, 83 years old, I said, 'Are you okay?' And he laughed. He said, 'What about you? Are you okay?' So we were both breathing pretty heavy, and I laughed at William, and I said, 'I'll tell you what, at the end of the day,' I said, 'I've got a bad back, my legs are killing me, and I got to drive 5 hours home with your mother, so don't complain to me.'" But, the Arkansas game was obviously one that was, it's a wake-up call for just a realization that, 7-0, it was nice to have that feeling, and Heisman talk, and college football playoffs, and ranked as high as number 2, and last 2 weeks, reality is set in, and I think for the young man on that football team and that coaching staff, it's it's back to basics. What type of effort are they going to give? Before the season, I think I had predicted breaking in a new quarterback and some holes defensively from a personnel standpoint. 9-3, 10-2, we're probably still in line for that. But I guess everybody, me myself included, fell in for the hype and enjoyed the 7 weeks. But it's all about how you respond, and that's what I told William. I said, it's all about how you respond. It's the ability to go back to work, stay focused on the next game. You hear that constantly by coaches all the time. And my old defensive line coach used to say at every point in the season, you'll see some coach on TV step up and say, it's time for us to get back to basics. And Pete Jenkins used to say, you dumbass, you never should have left him in the first place. So I kind of feel like that's where we're at. We just got to get back to basics, doing what we do well. Obviously, I think our challenge from an offensive standpoint is taking advantage of throws downfield, across the middle. Has not happened. I know we did come out and run a lot of shotgun in the second half against Arkansas, which was strange to see us do it just exclusively. But at the end of the day, those who watched that game saw very disjointed. There was no rhythm. Even when we were in that shotgun slinging the ball all over the field, there was just a lack of rhythm. Too many 3 and outs, and people laugh when I say this, but against Alabama, that defense in the first half played well enough to win. But when you continually roll that Alabama offense out after 3 and out by our offense, right, time after time, and to Kenny's point, we talked about this earlier, there's just, I think John Chavis, Coach Chavis, who's now at Texas A&M, and Coach Brick Haley, who is now at Texas, left some huge holes. I mean, after this year, and if Beckwith leaves, I think there's only 2 scholarship linebackers on the team. There's very little depth along the defensive front. There's no 300-plus pound guys up front. Bama was rolling 4 or 5 guys in that 330 range. So there are a lot of holes. I think I like Ed Ogeron. I think he's a fabulous coach. I think once he gets the opportunity to coach a fully stacked deck, so to speak, I think you'll see significant results. Hopefully it'll be a defensive line that we've become accustomed to in years past. So there are no, we miss the Benny Logans and the Michael Brockers of the world, and hopefully I think with the added depth of this year's coming class, we'll get back to playing a little bit better football up front. But at the end of the day, tough game against Ole Miss on the road. I think, they've kind of been brought back to reality. 3 losses this year. That was a team that many felt was the greatest talented team in the history of Ole Miss. It says a lot. So there's a lot of disappointment there, and I guess it's a game to see who responds the best. And in a weird way, I really think that the Tigers will respond well. I think I don't think he's ever lost 3 in a row. It's very rare that he's lost 2 in a row. Well, the back's against the wall, and we'll see how they respond this week. And I actually asked my son William if he would be okay if I didn't travel to the game, and he gave me his approval. So I've decided I'm going to fight his mother over that. And the Brother Martin Crusaders this week have a game Friday night, so I'll be out there in the field for that, and hopefully park in front of a TV somewhere where I can probably control myself a little bit better. So that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Very good. Over here. Wait for the microphone.
Tommy, I see another glaring weakness, and that's the special teams for LSU. We can't kick the ball into the end zone on the kickoff. We've had inconsistency punting the ball, and the coverage on the punts and the kickoffs is ridiculous. So comment about that.
Yeah, it's been, special teams play has always been a hallmark of Les Miles. Something interesting, because I know one of the young men, Mr. Gamble, has the ability to kick it through the end zone. But I think from what I gather, they are instructed to kick it as high as they can to the 1-yard line and allow the coverage team to come down and cover. If you kick it into the end zone, the starting point's 25. LSU feels very confident, and it has not been displayed all year. I mean, there was a game against Arkansas this past week where, we're back in the game. We kick the ball off, and lo and behold, they return it to the 45-yard line, eventually working with a short field, score a touchdown. To your point about coverage, very confusing. We got probably one of the fastest teams in the college football, in that area. We got a lot of speed, and to be in a hallmark of Les, it's a little bit confusing to see that continual breakdown there. As far as Jamie Keen's concerned, I think he struggled all year. I think he had a couple of decent punts against Arkansas, but more often than not, when the chips are down and you need that kick that you really want to see him boom it, like who was the gentleman before him playing? Mr. Wayne would always kick that 70-yarder at the critical time. We just haven't seen that. So it's been a compounding of errors there, special teams, and that certainly has hurt us in a lot of games. Anyone else?
Over here.
Yeah, Tommy, I've got a Brother Martin question. How far do you think your son's team will go this year? Is he a senior, and do you look forward to, once the football season's over, handing your son over to Robbie Dotree?
It's funny, I got 3 left at Brother Martin. So my milk bill has dropped from 12 gallons a week to I think maybe 8. So any donations will be duly noted and accepted. But I do have 3. I have a senior that starts at right guard. I have a junior that starts at defensive tackle. And I got a freshman who's on the team. We feel pretty confident. We've got a really good Catholic high team. We get them in Tag Gormley Friday night. I think if we win there, I think we play the winner of Holy Cross Evangel. I'll be honest with you, I look forward to the day when the playoffs are unified again. It's a little strange, it just doesn't feel right. But at the end of the day, I know my senior is going to go right into wrestling for Coach Dotree. My junior is going to continue to work. He wants to earn a football scholarship, and who knows what the freshman is going on in his head, I don't ask. So.
Kind of tagging on of the special teams thing and the coverage thing. I saw a guy that played for Catholic in fact, played against Brother Martin in the playoffs last year, Jack Johnson. He was one of the best kickers I ever saw. So, is he not on LSU? What is, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, why is he not kicking?
I think Les has always had a history of sticking with his guys, so to speak. You would anticipate that someone at some point in time would get another crack at doing the punting, but obviously they feel comfortable that they got the right guy. And I know Les has commented several times that he's been very inconsistent on his drops. Whatever the case may be, when we don't get that pump we need, it's a critical error.
And then you're talking about kicking the ball to the 1-yard line, and their philosophy is to have the guy be tackled within the 20. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful idea, but it doesn't work. Why can't we ever make adjustments to things that don't work?
Did I tell you I have a son that plays on the team? In all honesty, I think, like I said, it's been a hallmark of Les's career. He's had great special teams. So, the inability to make the adjustments there has been it's been very complexing to everyone. But I have watched Cameron Gamble boom them out of the end zone on a consistent basis, and I think there was a game of, maybe it was Alabama prior to that, where he did kick a few out the end zone. I know he's got the leg for it, but when you see those kicks and they go sky high and they land at about the 1 or 5, that's what they're attempting to do. So it hasn't worked. I think it cost us big in the Arkansas game from a momentum standpoint. We had actually made the game close. If we kick it deep, or they get it at the 25 instead of the 45, maybe it's a much different ball game at that point in time. It didn't turn out that way, and certainly Arkansas made us pay for that.
Is Johnson a red shirt? Can he not play?
What's that?
Is he red shirt? Is it red shirt?
Not sure. One play, now the rule is most people still believe that, you can play a certain amount. You can do that from a medical redshirt standpoint, but if you play a play in the course of the season, your red shirt is burned. And that actually, an interesting story about William last year, he was on second, he was redshirted, but he was on second team field goal and extra point. They had an injury, he ran in unbeknownst to the coaches, against, it was New Mexico or somebody, and so it burned his red shirt. But there was a penalty on the play against the opponent, and that allowed LSU to run onto the field, get him out of the game, and that one play did protect his red shirt. So that's pretty interesting to see. Anybody else? All right, well, I appreciate the time, and I look forward to seeing you next year.